My name is Ankit, sir. Thank you for putting this volume out in English because now that I'll be teaching to my students, because I always make use of English translation. Sir, in our Marathi families, we mostly listen to Abhangas through kirtans. I have been singing, I have been playing harmonium along with kirtankaras. So in so in that way, we always listen to the Abhangas. But now the question is that, sir, now that you translated these Abhangas into English, and now when I talk about the literary fashion of Abhangas, there is no Bhanga. So how do you maintain these Abhangas? Like what were the problems that you faced while translating them into English, sir?
Let me give you one small example, okay? Because people talk about lost in translation. And lost in translation, beta, who knows better than the translator what is lost? Who knows better? तेरे को क्या मालूम? What do you even begin? See, when you have started translating, it is like making love to a text. You are deep inside it. Sometimes you are deeper inside it than the author is. Because you have to understand it totally to get it. Or at least as totally as what yourself is. Because every text, right, once it is a text, is bigger than the writer.
And I welcome you all to the second day of VLF 2024, India's first non-fiction literary festival and the largest in Central India in partnership with Maha Metro. We function on lines similar to other established literary festivals across the country, but with the difference that we have purely non-fiction authors here in action in Nagpur. So thank you all for being here today. This grand festival that brings together the fantastic minds of India is only possible because of our sponsors. I would like to thank all our sponsors for their unconditional support. VLF, in alliance with Maha Metro, is running a year-long hashtag contest. We would love it if you all take a picture of yourself while reading and riding the metro and post it on any social platform and tag VLF and Maha Metro with the hashtag read and ride. Okay. The first prize is books worth 10,000 rupees and the second prize will be books worth 5,000 rupees. We are running another unique make your own bookmark contest. We have bookmarks available with us which we request you to collect and do it up as you may wish. Click a picture of it, post it on any social platform and tag VLF and Maha Metro. Lucky winners will get a copy of a book featured at VLF which has been selected by our team. Our moderator for this session is Asavri Deshpande. She is an avid reader, loves reciting poetry, a specialty coffee connoisseur, and an ardent music lover. She is a professional compere, a voiceover artist, and a script writer. She enjoys reading and reciting poetry, especially in Marathi and Hindi. To share this with fellow poetry lovers of the city, she runs a club of poets and poetry lovers that meets once a month and gives a platform to budding poets to share their original work as well as poetry enthusiasts to share their latest discoveries. Our author for today, Mr. Jerry Pinto, is a Mumbai-based Indian English poet, novelist, short story writer, translator, as well as journalist. He teaches journalism at the Sophia Institute of Social Communications Media in Mumbai and is on the board of directors of Mail which works in the sphere of child rights. His book about actress Helen Jairag Richardson, titled The Life and Times of an H-Bomb, went on to win the National Film Award for Best Book on Cinema in 2007. His first novel, M and the Big Whom, won the Hindu Literary Prize and the Sahitya Academy Award. It was also shortlisted for the Commonwealth Book Prize. He has translated several books from Marathi to English, including Cobalt Blue, Beluta, When I Hid My Caste and I, The Salt Doll. Pinto won the Wyndham Campbell Prize in 2016 for his fiction. So I would request Raj Lavri to please escort Mr. Jerry Pinto onto the stage and take it ahead.
Hi, thank you, Ruchi, for the lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. This is the second day of VLF 2024, and we are thrilled to be here, predominantly because this is, I think, the only panel in VLF 24 which is going to speak about transliteration and translation, which is I think a huge gap in today's literature scenario, I would say. And who better to talk about translation, transliteration than Jerry Pinto himself, who has translated many, many amazing Marathi books in English. Especially, I mean, we are going to discuss, of course, Behold, the Word is God, Hymns of Tukaram, which is transliteration of Tukaram's selected Abhangas, but he has also translated Baluta, which is one of my favorite Marathi novels and translated amazingly. So, Jerry, let's come to the question. What drew you towards this bhakti movement? Uh, were you reading about it as a child, or were you listening to a lot of Abhangas as a child?
I think to begin with, I have to say that the way we were taught language in school was terrible. It was meaningless and pointless. The way we were taught how to poetry was actually to recite poetry in large chunks without knowing the meaning of it, without being made aware. In fact, so tormented were we that, for instance, if you studied a poem called Lord Allen's Daughter, the teacher would ask you verse 7 and verse 14. And you had to actually jump in your head to verse 7 and then to verse 14. It's horrible. And still at that point, there was one poem by an Abhang by Tukaram, J.K. Ranzale Ganzale, which I learnt by heart. And like everything that you learn by heart was somewhere inside your head. I had no idea what it meant. I wrote answers in Marathi without knowing what they meant either, having mugged everything by heart. I was just like a typical Bombay kid who didn't like being in school, but was in school because your parents wanted you to be in school and they wanted you to study all this mad stuff like calcium valency is 2 and Drosophila is this kind of plant. It was like there was a world outside and there was a world in school and there was no similarity between them. There's no connect at all. Then cut to 20 years later and I suddenly decided I want to be a poet. Okay? Kahan se aaya? Who knows? Why would you choose poetry which nobody reads? Who knows? But I wanted to be a poet. And somewhere I read that Auden had said, or Spender, one of those old white men had said, Mere liye nahi phool. Ja rahe phool. Okay. Anyway, doesn't matter. We Bhakti movement people, we are used to this. The flowers are for other people. God is for us. Okay. Anyway, so then, Spender or Auden or someone said that a writer a poet should have thousands of lines of poetry inside his head. And so I decided that I would walk from Nariman Point right up to the top of Malabar Hill, from what was sea and now is land, right up to the place where the vultures eat the Parsis. And all along that stretch, I would recite poetry to myself loudly in the middle of the night. I was 15, yeah. It's like you do these things at 15. So I'm walking and reciting, and halfway through I'm running out of the good poems. Now I'm doing the poems from school, okay? And suddenly, from nowhere, J.K. Ranzale Ganzale surfaces. And I'm saying, J.K. Ranzale Ganzale, to si mane jo apule, to si sadhu olkhava, dev tete chi zanava, vruddh sabhaya navanit, taise sajjanache chitta. And I'm thinking, where did this come from? What are you doing inside my heart? And nothing else happened. This happened and went on. Cut to another 20 years. And this is how it works in Bhakti. There is no time frame. Time frames exist only for clocks and for the Greenwich Mean Time and for physicists and other such boring people. Bhakti time is immense. So I'm in a gym in Mahim called Forever Fit. Okay? And in this Forever Fit, there is this jinka chaka music playing all the time. Jinka chaka. You have no idea why, but it is playing. But this time the music failed, and walking next to me is Neela Bhagwat, who is an exponent of like classical Indian Sangeet and whatnot, and a socialist. So because she's a socialist, I can turn to her and say, Neela ji, there's no music, gaiye na. And she begins to sing. And we are walking on the treadmill and she's singing Mungi Udali Akashi. Okay? And I'm thinking, and see, this is the great thing about the fact of Indian classical music, right? Like in a Western song, they sing and then they move on. But in an Indian classical music performance, they keep going back to the same line. Now you are thinking, मुंगी उडाली आकाशी, तिने गिळिले सूर्यांशी. What can this mean? How can this be? What is this happening here? And you realize this is probably, maybe, who knows, Muktabai as a little girl playing with an ant. And then she picks up the ant and she closes one eye and gently she blots out the sun. Mungi udali akashi, tine gilile suryanshi. She swallowed the sun. Or it could be something else. It could be, for instance, what does it feel like when you encounter God? Is it like swallowing the sun so that lava and fire is pouring down into your heart and into your soul? Could that be what Mungi udali akashi, tine gilile suryanshi? Could this mean? What could this mean? She's so caught up in this moment, right? That you're saying, afterwards I'm saying to Neela, this is so beautiful. I want to read this quietly at home. And I'm lazy. Who isn't? I want to read it in English. Surely these have been translated, right? And she said, no. And I said, okay, Neela, you and I, we'll do 50 poems, 100 poems of these women saints together, right? And I've said this to 100 people when I'm excited. Like you listen to Urdu Shairi, for instance, you go to that person and you say, hey, you and I, let's do 100 Urdu poems that everyone should know. And they say, yeah, let's do. And they never come back. Okay, they just go away and do their own thing. But Neela's different. Neela suddenly turns up with 100 poems and is saying, here they are, let's start. Okay? And you think, oh my God, what have I just said? This is 13th century Marathi. This isn't even just the Marathi of every day. It's 13th century Marathi. But I'm thinking, okay, Neela is like, together we can do this, right? What you cannot do on your own, you can do together. If you plug into the real, into the mind, the hive mind of the world, you can do 100 things that you can't do on your own. This is the answer in bhakti, which is why the sampradaya, the samudaya, people together matter much more than people individually, which is why together. So I said, okay, we can do this together. And out of that came The Ant Who Swallowed the Sun. This is the first bhakti book. It took 5 years, but still. The Ant Who Swallowed the Sun and other poems. It's like these women, man, serious stuff. Here's Muktabai. First came joy, and on the morrow, hard on her heels, a visit from sorrow. First came joy, and on the morrow, hard on her heels, a visit from sorrow. Just as we settled down to grieving, sorrow announced that she was leaving. Joy and sorrow, what's the difference? Both are sisters, born of ignorance. Muktai tells Sangya, self-born the soul, standing like a banyan, erect and whole. Put up your hands if you've read Muktabai. Lanat hai Nagpur! This is your tradition. The richness of a tradition. And to answer Asavari's question, I'm so sorry, Asavari, mere jawab are like that. Like, I mean, you know, like, they're always footpaths in the wilderness.
I love the energy that's flowing here, by the way. It's brilliant.
Because, because one of the things that drew me to bhakti, the three things. One, it is so simple. It is such a simple thing. No meat, no alcohol, everyone equal on the path to bhakti. Now, 2 out of 3 I can manage. No, but 2/3 I will say, I'm a Varkari. Okay. Now, that's the first thing. But more importantly, it's equality. Equality in the eyes of each other, equality in the eyes of God. This is destabilizing the whole world. Nobody likes it, least of all the Brahmins. Because you're suddenly saying, na mandir, na masjid. You're saying, no rituals. You're saying 108 flowers, 2,000 coconuts. Nah. I'm telling you, I have the answer. They're saying, all these bhakti poets, which an urgency. They're saying, I'm telling you the answer. Now, easy, simple, do it. Take the name of God. That's all it takes. Beda paar ho jayega. It's over, it's done. No wonder they tell Tukaram, bury your bhangs in the river. No wonder they take all four of those first saints. Marathi people, we have 700 years of a literary tradition. Starting with Jnaneshwar, Muktabai, Sopandev and Nivruttinath, what did their parents feed them? You know that story, right? The great story of the outcasting. Because, anyway, it's just so long, I can talk all night, because these became my bandhus, these became my sisters, these became people whom I wanted to talk about to people. I wanted to give away the book free and say hey, read. This is your tradition. Not the tradition that people say it is. It is your tradition, one of equality, one of urgency, one of face to face with God, ripped and staring. A meltdown of lava and sunlight inside your heart. Can you take it? That's what they're asking. So,
क्या बात है, absolutely. I mean, bhakti movement.
we can't sit here. Bhakti is eye to eye, face to face. It's not about stages, right? So we'll sit
Equality.
On the stage. Yeah,
So
equality.
let's.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I absolutely personally adore is although bhakti movement is spiritually quite enriching, however at the same time it is way apart from the ritualistic ethos that were predominant in that era, and bhakti movement speaks.
In that era,
Yeah,
for
I
most
mean,
people, their religion is
even
ritual.
today partly.
There is no other religion other than ritual. Once we have done the puja in the morning, after that we don't have to be kind. We don't have to think Vasudhaivam Kutumbakam. Otherwise, when your daughter comes home with a Dalit, you will say, welcome, son. You will not tell your daughter, no, we are not casteist, no. But it is cultural problem that you will have. So, really, all religions ignore the fundamentality of their challenge. Because religion is nothing if it is not a challenge. Okay, it's just asking you, how naked can you be before God? Because everything we do, tag, kurta, nice kurta with two-side color, Fab India, all this is the things that we put on, okay, to identify ourselves. मैं लेखक हूं, मैं कुर्ता पहनता हूं. Okay, it's that kind of stuff. Whereas the question that they are asking is, the question every bhakti poet is asking you is simple. Your house is on fire. Why are you sitting in that house? The world is dukkham, dukkham, dukkham. What are you relying on in the world? Your faith is vanity if it is not backed by the powering of the word. Behold, Tukaram says, the word is God. Now think about this. How are you using the words that you use every day? Just every day. Driving in traffic and you say, okay? Your child comes home with 40% and you say, Arey, in our family we never got under 90. Where have you come from? Those are the words that you are deploying, and those words are God. For all those people, those words are God. Those words have power. And when I read that Abhang of Tukaram, I thought, how do you talk about Hinduism and Christianity and Islam as though they are different things? St. John's Gospel begins with, behold, the Word was God. And I wept. Tukaram and St. John, saying the same thing. This word, this ordinary word, this has the power of God. This is yours and mine. Because all of us have language. All of us are joined in language. Right? And with that, we all become heirs to this huge tradition. And it frightens us so much. It frightens us so much that we try to blank it out of our heads. Because right now, in this very moment, you could be called. You could be called. And then what would happen? Most of our lives we spend in terror because we want to get up tomorrow and have our chai and our biscuit and go to work because that's ordinary everyday life and we are comfortable there. The Bhakti movement, they will tell you it's never comfortable. Tukaram says it's like trying to roll rotis on the top of a pin. That's how difficult.
No, this is flowing so beautifully. I mean, so we are talking a lot about Bhakti movement, and in Bhakti movement, they identify 4 stages of Bhakti, which is Salokata. I and my God, we exist in the same universe. Sarupata, हम लोग एक जैसे हैं. समीपता, we are closer to each other. And संयुज्यता, which is the highest form. संयुज्यता, like हम दोनों अलग नहीं हैं, एक ही हैं. So here, in a lot of Tukaram's Abhangas, we see this Sanyujya Bhakti, and it comes out so beautifully that he has gained such authority over Vitthal that he can even fight with Vitthal. So I particularly enjoyed reading translation of this Abhanga, Bare Zhale Deva Nighale Diwali. Would you like to recite that for all of us? Okay. Yes.
You are now Tukaram, you are now looking at your God, you are talking to him. Respect that. Okay,
Bilkul.
chal.
बरे झाले देवा निघाले दिवाळे.
Are bare zale deva
Bare-
nighale diwali. It could be that, or it could be what she's saying. It could be like Tukaram saying, like really, I've
How could you
worshipped
do
all
this to
this
me?
time,
Either it
and
could be
this
that
is what you
tone.
did. Bare zale deva nighale. Or it could be bare zale. He is actually accepting that poverty and being distraught draws you closer to God. Which one really depends on you? When you're reading it, are you distraught with God? Then it becomes Bare Zale Deva. Chala. See what you can do now. And when you're not distraught, it is Bare Zale Deva. Yeah? Read.
बरे झाले देवा निघाले दिवाळे. बरे झाले देवा निघाले दिवाळे. बरी या दुष्काळे पीडा केली. अनुतापे तुझे राहिले चिंतन. Like I was so occupied with my everyday life. अनुतापे तुझे राहिले चिंतन. झाला हा वामन संसारा. बरे झाले देवा बाईला I'm sorry, this is in English, so I'm having a little tough time. बरे झाले देवा बाईला कर्कशा. बरे झाले देवा बाईला कर्कशा. बरी ही दुर्दशा जन्मामध्ये. बरे झाले जगी पावलो अपमाना. बरे झाले जगी पावलो अपमाना. बरे गेले धन ढोरे गुरे. बरे झाले नाही धरिली लोकलाज. बरे झाले नाही धरिली लोकलाज. बरा आलो शरण तुझ देवा. बरे झाले तुझे केले देवीला. बरे झाले तुझे केले देवईला. लेकरे बाईला उपेक्षिली. तुका म्हणे बरे व्रत एकादशी. केले उपाशी जागरण.
Such a great poem. Now, I apologize for doing this. Nagpur Madhe, should I be reading English, Tukaram? But since Nagpur is like everywhere else, 700 years separated from Tukaram, it may be that 13th century Marathi, 17th century Marathi might be difficult. So here we go. I am bankrupt. Thank you for that. This famine torments me. Thank you for that. This world sickens me. Thank you for that. My wife is a shrew. Thank you for that. I am a laughing stock. Thank you for that. Money goes and livestock too. Thank you for that. I have no shame left. I'm glad of it. I'm at your feet. I neglected my family to restore your temple. I'm glad I did. Tuka says, I celebrated Ekadashi last night. I fasted and spent a wakeful night. Fasted, no. He is starving. There is no food. This is the middle of the famine. But he's saying, you made a famine and you made it possible for me to fast all night. Okay? Uh, he is in, I don't have to tell you about Tukaram, right? At least put up your hands if you don't know, if you want a little about Tukaram. No problem. Right, okay. So Tukaram is a Kunbi. He is, also his family is a fairly wealthy family. So they own a Kirana ka dukan. Okay. Eventually Tukaram inherits the Kirana dukan and he's not very good at it. Because he's involved in God, right? His mind is God mad. His bhakti is complete and total. So then the famine happens. The famine happens and people and cattle are dying all around. And Tukaram, because he's got a kirane ka dukan, has a whole bandar full of food. Okay? So he starts giving away the food. And I think in the beginning his wife is okay with that because, she must have also been sympathetic. But eventually there's no food left for the children. And when he says, my wife is a shrew, you must understand that in the bhakti tradition, the women often didn't know what was going on. Like, will you please stop this? Gonai says it, the husband, the wife of Namdev says it, the mother of Namdev says it, like gave birth to a stone, she says. Who is this? God, what is this? Take him back, she says. What is the use of such a son? So when he says, my wife is a shrew, you have to understand that the bhakti saints had wives who had to feed 14 people. And there was no food in the house because these guys are doing talya chipolya all night, right? They were not good providers. They were going to be immortal. That was the deal. Why would, any writer is going to give up advances today if you can guarantee that 700 years later, they're still singing your songs. 700 years later, Muktabai is as alive for us as she was then. 300 years later, Tukaram, Jeka Ranzale Ganzale, Roman Catholic boy who doesn't know much Marathi, walking down the road, remembers the lines. They come from somewhere deep inside his heart. The nz, nz, ranzale, ganzale, nz, z, the rubbing of rusty surfaces together. That somewhere has settled into his heart, into the music of that is poetry also. Right? So, eventually and essentially, everything that we do harks back to the magic of language, harks back to the magic of words. And in them, we have no knowledge of Muktabai, Zanabai, Kanhopatra, all those lovely women that I translated, if it were not for a hagiographer called Mahipati, who wrote their stories in the 17th century. Okay? And for many people, there is a kind of discomfort when you read the stories because there are miracles as well. Someone teaches the buffalo to recite the Vedas, someone sitting on a wall and it flies, etc., etc. But that is the way the saints were always presented across the world. Saint writing is not historical writing. There is no point going to the saint writing and saying, tell me the truth about your society, because the saints have seen through society. The society doesn't matter to them. How can it matter? Mirabai, born in a family that Zubricki over there, John Zubricki would love to write about, right? Married into another royal family, dancing down the road alone on her way to Delhi, dancing on her way alone to Mathura Vrindavan, in love with her God. What does society have to say to her? If we studied Mirabai, would we learn anything about the women of Rajasthan at that time? Certainly not. We learn about what it means to feel that your whole universe has been ulta-palti. Like nothing makes sense anymore. But what really makes sense is that you are stumbling onto some truth that is defying every logic of the world as it stands. Mungi udali akashi, tine gilile suryanshi. In this world, an ant can swallow the sun. That is the world now. And that world means every time you open your eyes, there is a challenge and a violence done to your sense of reality. Fabulous. That's why I translated these guys. Because you're just let into that world. Patli gali se. You don't have to live this life which is terrifying, but you can watch it. Watch it.
That was a beautiful insight. I was actually going to ask why Tukaram, but you answered that question anyway because, why not? His poetry is as beautiful as any other Bhakti movement poet, and you had already done translation of women saints of the time. But coming to the other part of this, you have translated selective Abhangas so beautifully. Do you see youngsters, especially millennials, reading Tukaram, even Marathi speaking millennials reading Tukaram, original poetry of Tukaram? And is the picture hopeful or absolutely hopeless?
I'm so sorry to say this, but when people say to me, I used to read poetry when I was in college, or I used to read poetry when I was in school, and I've stopped reading now, I say, I'm so sorry for you. What happened? Have you seen a mental health professional about it? Have you talked to somebody that you stopped enjoying poetry? Because this is not normal. This is not human even. Even if you got married. I mean, when married women in India wrote the most beautiful OVs and wrote them to the grinding stone movement. This is hard work. Kachak, kachak, chakach, kachak, chak, chak. And therefore that chakach, kachak, kachak, chak, chak, that half line at the end comes from the OV grinding. Don't talk about your work taking you away from poetry. How could you? These are women who are working 20 hours a day, hard labor, and they are making poetry. If you gave up poetry, you gave up humanity. You gave up half your life. You gave up 3/4 of your soul. Why? Why? I am so unsurprised at the state of India. If we read Tukaram every night, you would not be able to do this. You just would not. So when people say, I don't read, I used to read Tukaram when I was in school, he is very nice and whatnot, I feel like kicking them. But I'm committed to non-violence as well. So I just say, how sad. Try again, na. What is to stop you from buying a book of poetry, putting it by your bedside, and reading one poem in the night before you go to sleep? How rich your dreams will be. How warm your soul will be. How nurtured your heart will be. And even your gut biome will be better. That I don't know about, but I'm just throwing it in because people like this gut biome nonsense these days. They read more about gut biome than they read about... so, no, I'm not very hopeful at all. I'm not very hopeful. But then I go back to these. Why do you think I did this? Why have I come to Nagpur to tell you about Tukaram? Yeah. Can you imagine? But we tend to forget. We tend to forget that the easiest thing, easiest road to our commonly shared humanity is reading. And the deepest path is poetry. Loudly.
Jerry, you know, I mean, of course you know, but for those who don't understand Marathi, Marathi मध्ये एक शब्द आहे तळमळ. So I can see Tarmar personified here about Tukaram, his poetry, about reading in general, which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I feel so lucky that I got to moderate this session, and thank you, Sachin sir. It was all because of you. Thank you so much. So coming back to some
You
of
know,
these.
when someone I told somebody that they've invited me to Vidarbha, they said, "Aho, it is a non-fiction festival." I said, there are deep levels of non-fiction, and the deepest level of non-fiction is the Santa Kavita. So they're quite right.
Wow, क्या बात है. Absolutely true. Coming back to a little technicalities of the book that you divided poem, like you selected abhangas, divided them into three parts: Tukaram and poetry, Tukaram and life, Tukaram and Vitthal. So, how did that division happen? Because there are some abhangas that are so on borderlines of two and more than two themes. How did you choose, or was
Well
it?
noted, Asavari, well noted. Any of those poems can be shifted because at the end of the day, you know, okay, there's a lovely poem where there is this old lady who is preparing to go on pilgrimage, okay? And as she's going on pilgrimage, she's telling her daughter-in-law, now be careful and don't eat too much dahi and tak. And don't touch my cow pats, those are my cow pats. And don't throw away that broken pot, I will use it somehow, you just let it be. Okay, she's telling her all this. And then she's off, about to leave when her daughter-in-law says, Aho, you go quietly. Don't worry, everything is in good hands. And the mother-in-law thinks, whose hands? Your hands? And she turns around and says, this is my Pandharpur, my children are my Vitthala, and I'm going to stay here, I'm not going on this thing. Now, when I read it, I just thought it was a lovely poem, well observed, ta 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 ta. And Shanta, in her elegant fashion, said, yes, of course, it's a lovely poem, Jerry. But it's also a poem about how we are all trapped in the ordinary and everyday world, in things about our dahi and our tak and our broken pot and our cow pats, and we won't go to Pandharpur. We won't set out on pilgrimage because we are trapped in the everyday world. And I thought, Bondhu, dumb idiot. Of course, it is a poem about the journey, about the great journey that we all need to make. And I had missed it because I was so enjoying the fun of it. Huh? And this is the thing about the Sant Kavita. Each time you come back, you're going to learn something that you had not thought of before. And therefore, there is no end to the reading of it. So, you know, the terrible sad thing is when we started out, Neela and I started out with Ant Who Swallowed the Sun. They used to have a Sarth of the, a 2-volume Sarth Gita press of all the women poet saints from the 13th century right up to Bahinabai, 19th century. There was a Bahinabai in Tukaram's time also, but we are talking about the 19th century. They had that 2-volume set. So, you know, we were relying on Neela's. So I rang up Gita Press and I said, can I have a copy? And they said, we have stopped publishing it 20 years. One more silencing of women. It's gone. Tukaram is still available. There are 3 different versions, but the women saints are no longer available. So, okay, how did we, when we were making, okay, so when, if you look at the Tukaram Sarth, right, this thing, it is all the poems, any old how. Meaning was no attempt to chronologize, to arrange them by theme or anything. It's just from 1 to 5,000, like that, 5,500. Just like numbers. Now to make things just difficult, each edition has different numbers. So you can't rely on the numbers being the same, but at least it's there, right? And so when we were doing only these 50, okay? So these 50, we thought we needed to put them in some kind of order, in some kind of thing, because you're talking to, I mean, Maharashtra, presumably everybody knows Tukaram, at least by name, right? Outside Maharashtra, sometimes not, right? So this is a very funny thing happened. I was in Calcutta recently. So I told the Calcutta Literary Festival, I said, chalo, we'll do Tukaram in Marathi and English. You all get Tukaram in Bangla. And I said, Tagore has translated Tukaram into Bangla. I didn't know that he had, but I thought, wo to Tagore hai, ye to Tukaram hai, he must have translated. Nah, come on, it must be obvious. So they went to two scholars in Calcutta and they said, Tagore has translated Tukaram. And the scholar said, really? We hadn't heard it. We heard he did Andal, but not Tukaram. But they're good scholars. So they said, we'll check with Vishwa Bharati. They went and checked with Vishwa Bharati, and lo and behold, Tagore had translated Tukaram. I was right. And so on that stage, we had Tukaram in English, Tukaram in Marathi, and then Tukaram in Bangla. So now I'm going to go across the country and just say to people, Narsi Mehta translated Tukaram into Gujarati. Go find them. Yeah? And they will have to find them. It will be such good fun. Yeah? Let's just take Tukaram across the country is what my mission is right now. So we put them into categories which are not necessarily airtight. By all means, feel free to reassign categories. Because what are categories? Yeah? What are categories in bhakti? Basavanna says in that glorious poem, when they see a man coming, when they see long hair and big breasts coming, they say it is a woman. When they see a beard and big muscles, they say it is a man. But what of the soul, Ramanatha, Lord of the meeting rivers? Is the soul male or female? And then what is the question of the categories? How does it matter? Make your categories if you must. Live by them if you must. Dispense with them if you must. Yeah? Time?
Time कैसे चला गया पता नहीं चला. We are going to open the forum for everyone to ask questions. But before we sum up, I think this is Abhanga that everybody here, I'm pretty sure they know. So let's read this and sum up the session so that all of you get, this.
And no bhakti can be sitting down. So chal, ut, get up. Yeah.
Should I read in Marathi?
Yes, please.
Yes. So हा अभंग सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे. हे वाचून तुम्ही थोडं इन्स्पायर व्हा, मोटिवेशन घ्या. Buy the book, read the abhangas and read the translation also.
I don't care if you know or don't know. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're John Zubricki and you've never spoken Marathi in your life. Just say the sounds. Remember, in our tradition, it was never meaning. It was never meaning. The power of the shlok, the power rested in the sound and the vibration. Let's produce the vibration and the sound without caring about the meaning. And let's see what follows. Na? Chal. You read a line, they say the same line.
सुंदर ते ध्यान उभे विटेवरी
नाश्ता नहीं केला का? Okay, so again.
सुंदर ते ध्यान उभे विटेवरी कर कटावरी ठेवो निया तुळसी हार गळा कासे पितांबर आवडे निरंतर हेची ध्यान मकर कुंडले तळपती श्रवणी कंठी कौस्तुभमणी विराजित तुका म्हणे माझे हेची सर्व सुख पाही न श्रीमुख आवडीने.
Thank you all. Thank you for doing that. I just love it when we do it like together and then we break down this wall of he is reading, we are audience, this is his show, this is not us. It is ours together because it's open. The road is open. It's a terrible road. It's a difficult road. It's a thorny road, but it's an open road. There's never been a question on this road, ki, are you Muslim, are you Hindu, are you Christian? Never anything like that. There's never been a question on this road, are you upper caste, lower caste? Do you know Sanskrit? Do you not know Sanskrit? These are our questions. So I am regularly asked in question time, ye bat poochna, ye bas mat poochna, ki, do you know Marathi? Okay? Because this is the problem of being Geronimo Maria Pinto. Everyone thinks you are from a Raj Kapoor film and you do not know any Marathi and you do not know any Hindi. And, to answer that before you ask, before you ask, I dream in English, but I go on pilgrimage to Marathi. And this I
That
bring
was
as
beautiful.
Prashant. Thank you.
Yes. Questions? You can have this mic.
My name is Ankit, sir. Thank you for putting this volume out in English because now that I'll be teaching to my students, because I always make use of English translation. Sir, in our Marathi families, we mostly listen to Abhangas through kirtans. I have been singing, I have been playing harmonium along with kirtankaras. Uh, so in the, so in that way, we always listen to the Abhangas. But now the question is that, sir, now that you translated these Abhangas into English, and now when I talk about the literary fashion of Abhangas, there is no Bhanga. So how do you maintain these Abhangas? Like what were the problems that you faced while translating them into English, sir?
Let me give you one small example, okay? Because people talk about lost in translation. And lost in translation, beta, who knows better than the translator what is lost? Who knows better? तेरे को क्या मालूम? What do you even begin? See, when you have started translating, it is like making love to a text. You are deep inside it. Sometimes you are deeper inside it than the author is. Because you have to understand it totally to get it. Or at least as totally as what yourself is. Because every text, right, once it is a text, is bigger than the writer. It's bigger than the writer. Because every reader is making it a new text. So it suddenly begins to acquire more and more and more passionate avatars of itself. So then the writer, the original writer becomes smaller and smaller and the text grows larger and larger. Each time you will read a Tukaram Abhang, you will add to Tukaram. Okay? Until finally you have a relationship with the Abhangs that is Abhang. You cannot break that relationship. It cannot be separated from you. It is part of you. And whether it was by Tukaram or not is no longer your problem. You're already, it is part of you. So when you're translating it and you're taking it into another language, which does not have the meanings Vidya Sagar or Daya Sagar, is ocean of mercy. It just sounds overblown in English. But in Hindi and Marathi, you can see where it's coming. When Kanho Patra, who is a sex worker, says Daya Sagara, you know where she's talking from. You know that she's hoping, praying that there is Daya on that side. Enough Daya to wash her sins away. What she sees as sins, we would see as commercial work. But what she sees as sins, what has made her an outcast, what has made her unworthy to enter the temple, what has made her, spat upon by when she passes down the road, she's hoping this is going to be washed away. Because we know Kanho Patra was a sex worker and we know what it means at that time for a sex worker. None of it to a millennial, someone asked me, a millennial, she's a sex worker, that's damn cool, yeah, they'd say. You know, sex work is really like work. I mean, it's just another form of work, right? That's what they say. Now, if they actually believe that, then how do you tell them what Daya Sagar means to this woman? Okay, so there are the loss in to begin with, the history of literature is the history of loss. When an idea, any writer will tell you, when an idea starts in the brain, it's perfect. It's so large. It's so wonderful. And then you must take these neuronal synapses and all the electricity passing between them, and you must make it into words. And the words are limited. The words are short. There's not enough words. So already there's loss. Now I'm handing this book to you as my editor, and you are cutting, and there's more loss. And then this book is handed to her, and she's reading, but page 5 is beginning to bore her, so she jumps 3 pages, and here comes a nice part. He's kissing her finally. Okay? So then she started reading from there. More loss, right? And hundreds of thousands of books in the world that are never read by anybody. More loss. We celebrate loss as writers. Loss is what we understand best. Loss, and each loss, we hope, will be filled by the gain of the reader. The reader will bring himself or herself into that loss.
Thank you, Jerry Bondhu. You've just, what you have done today is make us rethink, everyone here at VLF rethink what non-fiction is not. And how poetry are actually words in performance. I've heard you many times online, but it takes a presence like yours to make us aware of the larger presence here and above and beyond. I just wanted to say thank you, Jerry Bondhu.
Before we before we end the session, we have a really amazing surprise for you. So we have with us prolific singer Shruti Vishwanath. Please put your hands together for Shruti. And may I request you to... I'm going to take the liberty to request you to sing one Abhanga of Tukaram, whatever you like. By the way, we are going to have her show.
So the plan has changed after I heard.
Sorry.
No. So we have Shruti's cultural program this evening at 5:30. So please do attend. It's in Banyan Hall, which is right next to this hall, Tamarind.
No, I'm fine. Like the way you were, that's the way I am. So I'll sing an Abhanga, which might surprise you. It's not Tukaram. This is Eknath. But
One more thing.
yeah, one more set. So I want to sing it, and I want you all to sing it with me because I think it's going to surprise about 50% of you in the room. So. अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना। कोई दिन सर पर छत्तर उड़ावे, कोई दिन सर पर घड़ा चढ़ावे, कोई दिन सर पर छत्तर उड़ावे, कोई दिन सर पर गढ़ा चढ़ावे, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना। कोई दिन शक्कर दूध मलिदा, कोई दिन अल्लाह मागत गदा, कोई दिन शक्कर दूध मलिदा, कोई दिन अल्लाह मागत गदा, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना। अरे कोई दिन राजा बड़ा अधिकारी, एक दिन होवे कंगाल भिखारी, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना। And just in case you had a doubt by this point that what is she singing? So, एका जनार्दनी करत करतारी, गाफल केव करता मगरूरी, एका जनार्दनी करत करतारी, गाफल केव करता मगरूरी, अल्लाह रखेगा वैसा भी रहना, मौला रखेगा वैसा भी रहना।
Everybody hug someone next to you. Come on, hug someone next to you.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you all very much.
Now, I would like to invite Mr. Sachin Jagirdar to present a token of appreciation to Mr. Jerry Pinto. This is a specially made frame of a monument in Nagpur. Thank you, Asavri and Mr. Jerry Pinto, for this lovely, enriching, inspiring session. And thank you, everyone. You've all been a wonderful audience.